Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Musician's Mentor Podcast. I am your host, Travis Mark, and today I'm excited to announce that my guest is none other than American drummer slash producer slash singer and career coach, Mr. Matt Starr. Matt is originally from New York City and has worked with a variety of artists during his career, notably Mr. Big and Ace Frehley, Joe Turner, Kevin DuBrow. He's also performed alongside Johnny Depp, Gene Simmons, Phil X, you name it. Matt has a really unique story which we talk about during the course of this interview, and has even managed to consolidate what he's learned over the years into a bit of a niche where he coaches and mentors and advises up-and-coming and career musicians on their own careers. We talk about that and so much more during this interview, which we're going to get into pretty shortly. As usual, before we do, please let me remind you that if you're getting anything from these interviews, please leave us a rating, review, follow, like, or share. It's extremely helpful, and I can't thank you enough. Likewise, please don't forget to check out our affiliation with the lovely folks over at Soundbrenner. There's a link in our show notes, as is all of Matt Starr's information. For now, let's jump straight into it. Ladies and gentlemen, the one and only Matt Starr. All right, Matt Starr, drummer to the superstars and quite the motivational guy on social media, at least from what I've seen. So thanks for taking the time to join us on the Musician's Mentor Podcast. We're going to jump straight into this because I know we had a couple technical difficulties to start. So I'm going to rush into this as quick as possible. I'm going to do what I do with everybody, and that is basically, even though I'm going to hype you up in my introduction once I go through the editing process of this interview, I ask all my guests to do a brief introduction as to who they are. So if you wouldn't mind, tell my listeners who Matt Starr is.
Well, that's a big question, but for these purposes, drummer, producer, coach, played with a lot of my favorite artists that I grew up listening to: Ace Frehley, Mr. Big, Paul Stanley, George Lynch, Joe Turner, Michael DeBar's, etc. And live in Los Angeles and in Connecticut, and here talking with you.
Amazing, dude. And again, I can't thank you enough for your time. I want to backtrack a little bit. Talk to me a little bit about how you got into music, how old you were when you decided that you wanted to pursue it as a career, and if you had any kind of initial game plan, more than just practicing and playing, once you had decided that you were going to try and move forward with this as a career path.
I was 8 years old, had a neighbor, Scott Kabbalah, who lived up the street, and I saw a record called Kiss Alive 2. And that was it. I mean, the pictures just blew my mind, and then open it up, and it's a shot from the Love Gun tour from '77. Just, they're on risers, there's flames, there's sparks. It's just, I didn't know what they were doing. I knew they were a band, obviously, but like, I just saw that picture and I just thought, that's it. Like, I just want to be in there with those guys, and I never felt like that about anything before then or since then, really. Like, not, and I still, when I look at that picture, I still have that feeling, and the fact that I've actually played with everyone in that picture, all the 4 original Kiss guys, is a testament to, I think, just something spoke to me in that moment. And I was just like, yup, full yes, complete, all capital letters, So I think in that moment too, I didn't consciously decide that I wanted to do this for a career, but I just knew when I saw that picture, I just was like, that's all I care about now. That's all I want to do. It's all I want to listen to. I would come home from school and listen to the records and draw their faces and trace their autographs and like get magazines from the drugstore and read about, the real Kiss, who they are, which was, again, all bullshit, just press hype, which is fine. That's good. Ace Frehley's from another planet, etc., which might be true. I don't know. But I think as far as like a game plan, I don't know that I had one other than I'm going to do this and I don't want to do anything else. So I would go see the guidance counselor at school, which is like in 10th grade, when they'd start saying, well, what do you want to do for college? And I said, I don't want to go to college. College is a school, right? It's like, yeah, I don't want to go to any more school. I don't want to be here today. I just want to play music. I didn't have a bad experience, but I just didn't enjoy school. I didn't, I can add 2 plus 2. I can figure out if a bill is $56, 560 plus 560 is 10, it's $11.20 is a 20% tip. I can do math. We're good. Like, I don't feel like I need all this other stuff. And so, I just, by the next year I came back and she said, okay, so what are you thinking about for school? And she goes, "Are you still doing the music thing? Okay, good. That's great." And she just was like, later, like, I'm not going to bother trying to convince you. Cause I just want to play music. That's it, and I'm not anti-education because I've done a lot of, clinics and workshops at music schools and colleges and, I'm doing something at a musicians institute, which I've done a bunch of things in there in the past. So like, I love, talking to students. And I would say like of my friends who are in successful bands, that you've heard of, probably about half of them are formally educated. So I don't have an opinion like, you got to be self-taught or, you got to do school or not do school. But that for me, that was it. That was all I wanted to do. So I think, the plan was just like, I'm going to do this and I'm not going to do anything else. And that's it. Just figure it out. So I think having a plan would have been better looking back. I had clarity, right? But I didn't have a plan. I think too, the way I grew up, my folks are wonderful and they're still married and they're just amazing people. But my mom was stay-at-home mom and then she ended up, getting jobs once we got old enough. And my dad worked in computers and insurance companies. So what I wanted to do just scared the shit out of them. They couldn't figure it out. And they weren't even business owners, right? So they couldn't even, let alone that it was art in the arts of what I wanted to do. But like, they weren't even business owners. So it's just like, you're going to just go out and do this thing on your own. Like, just, you should get a job. And I'm like, but who am I, can I work for Jimmy Page? I mean, I'll go do that job. But like, I don't, I never met a boss, when I was a kid and, meet people that had jobs or, this is my boss. And I'm like, I wouldn't want to work for them. I don't want to hang out with them. You know what I mean? I sure don't want to work for them, So it just, none of that made any sense to me. And again, to my parents, they love me and they were super supportive. And, I just played Carnegie Hall last month and like they were there and my parents are much older now and as everybody is. But, like physically and health wise, it was a bit of a thing for them to get to that show, but they were there. Of course they were there because they love me and support me. So, but as a kid, yeah, they just were like, I don't know what you're talking about, man. And this is like terrifying us.
Yeah.
So I never, it was like, I'm going to make it, and that was it for me. But as far as it taking it seriously as a business, I don't think I didn't think like that. I just thought like, I'm just going to go out there and kick ass and then I'm going to make money and everything's going to be fine.
Yeah. Well, it worked out, and it's something
Yeah.
that, at least from seeing, let's say, a dozen or more of your videos, the clips that you put on Instagram, the reels that I suppose they called, you seem quite big on having clarity, like now at this point in your life. And I don't know, I'm paraphrasing or at least assuming from what I've seen. You seem quite big on trying to have a plan, trying to like level up, focus on what you want, that kind of mindset. So, I know that this, again, might be a little up in the air in how it's possibly going to come across, but talk to me about some of the experiences once you get into the music world, once you're out there and you're doing your thing and people are like, wow, this Matt Starr dude's a great drummer. We should get him in our band, etc., etc., etc. What were possibly some of the experiences you had that made you realize that maybe you should have a clearer focus or try and find certain steps to get to the goals that you were trying to achieve?
I think being 37, 38 and still playing in bars, it wasn't a moment, right? But it was a situation. And I was like, what is going on? Like I had a band called The Flames. We had a demo deal with Atlantic. We were managed by Rick Aliberti. Rick had worked with Kiss and Queen and but anyway, didn't happen. Had another band called the Automatic Music Explosion, did a record with Mike Chapman. Mike had produced, bunch of Blondie records, including Parallel Lines, The Knack, The Sweet, Tina Turner, et cetera, wrote tons of hits. Did a record with him. He loved us. It was amazing. Nothing happened. Right. So like I kept thinking, well, like tomorrow, next week, next year, and here I am. And I'm like in my mid-30s and capable drummer, not thinking I'm, going to challenge Danny Carey to a drum off, but like I know how to do what I want to do. And yet I wasn't doing any of those gigs. I wasn't playing with anyone that you had ever heard of. Right. Just playing with a bunch of other guys who were talented and cool, but like not living my dream. So that clarity of like, holy shit, I'm about halfway through my life and I'm not living my dream. I'm supporting myself playing music. So I like need to acknowledge that and be grateful for that. But like, it's not working, man. Like what I'm doing is not working. And the advice anyone ever, if I did have the occasion to talk to anyone I was doing anything that I was, impressed with, they would say, be professional, keep practicing, and like just be cool, like be a cool person to be around. I'm like, okay, I'm doing all that. Nothing's happening. So I realized that I had no idea what I was doing. Not as a drummer, but as a person like that would actually have a career as a drummer, and again, not just playing bars and doing covers. So that was the moment where I realized, I know nothing. And that was like a huge relief because I'm like, oh, thank God. Cool. Because I thought I was just like cursed. And it's like, no, you have no clue how to actually do this for a living at the level you want to do it. So then I just started reaching out to people that were doing it at that level. And I realized when I talked to them, I mean, I had a huge transformation, and that's the basis of what I teach with my coaching. I had a huge transformation. So when people are like, who do I need to talk to or what? I'm like, you got to get your head out of your ass first. So I can set you up and you can go talk to, Josh Freeze. But like, if your mindset isn't right, that conversation, it's not going to be anything. It's just going to be like, hey, I'm at Josh Freeze, and you're going to post a picture, and then like, that's it.
That's it. Yeah.
Like you want a meaningful experience. It starts with mindset.
Yeah.
So I went through again this huge transformation, a lot of soul searching and reflection and growth and shit. And it was super painful, but this was the shit that I had to overcome. And some of it was around money. Some of it, there's a lot of fear, believe it or not. Right. So like people are like, oh, I want to tour the world. And then they sort of get an opportunity and they just screw it up. And it's like, you freaked out.
Yeah.
Or we've, as I started getting in this business, I'd meet someone who played with somebody of note, I played with so-and-so, and they keep talking about, no, I was hanging with so-and-so, blah. And I go, cool, like what year was that? And it's like 15 years ago. And I'm like, okay. And you got fired and then you never got another gig again. What did you do?
Yeah.
Like, what did you do? Right. And they've got a story, but it's not the industry. It's them. Like they freaked out. They fucked it up. They had to tank it in some way, So and all my coaching stuff is born out of that. And then, and we can talk about the coaching thing too, but down the line, but about half of my clients are musicians. And then the other half are people that found me because they like music or they're a fan of some band or artist I worked with. But they're like, hey, would you coach me? I have my own business or I have this or that. And I'm like, yeah, because the things that I'm talking about, they're not specific to music. But because I'm a musician, I think musicians, the ones that are open to it, can hear me because I'm like one of them. And they're like, hey, that guy's, touring the world, making records with people. Okay, cool. I'll listen to him,
Super motivating stuff. In fact, the self-sabotaging side of things is something that comes up in this podcast quite often. The video that got my attention, well, I mean, I'd watched several But the one that really, I was like, man, I wonder how people are going to respond to that, was you had a video that you put out called Holding Onto a Lousy Gig. Which I thought was quite
Yeah.
powerful because, again, a lot of musicians, they get into this space, for lack of a better word, where they are paying their bills. And like you had mentioned earlier, that's quite an attestment. It's not easy to live with this career, and so they get scared of potentially losing certain gigs, trying to level up because they think, well, if I don't make that $200 or that $150, whatever it is that they're making on that particular gig that they potentially aren't into, that they might not be able to pay their bills. So I'm going to kind of circle this around to try and now get into my next question and include some of the coaching stuff, since you already touched on it. I know you do the coaching thing. I checked out your website. You mentioned that you do it with some businesses as well. Again, I don't mean for this to sort of come across as redundant in any way, but tell me what made you start then exploring the avenue of coaching once you had kind of gotten to this different part in your music career. And in a nutshell, just give my listeners a bit of an idea of what you do if they're interested in finding out more about working with you in a coaching space.
Yeah. So, again, 37, 38. And I was basically starting over because as I started to reach out to people and say like, hey, I'm looking for a drumming gig, which I don't recommend people do that actually, but I just had to do something. And then they're like, oh, I'm looking for a gig. And they're like, oh yeah, you're a great singer. I'll definitely recommend. And I was like, oh shit, I've been singing. So I had been fronting bands for the last like 8 years and doing cover gigs as a drummer, right? To pay the bills. But everyone who actually knew me, they knew me as a singer. So I'm like, oh shit. And they're like, oh, you play drums? I'm like, oh God, fuck. Like it's like, Zach Wild's like, hey, I play keyboards. And you're like, oh, okay, dude, cool. Yeah, I'll keep you in mind. You know what I mean? It's like, if you say so. So I was really like starting from nothing because people didn't even know me as a drummer of anyone who did know me. But like within 9 months, and I got some different gigs along the way. I had a tour with Gary Sharon, and then we had a gig with an artist opening for Ted Nugent. So I was getting out there, and then I got the Ace Frehley gig. Then I was living in LA, and people started reaching out to me, and they all said the same thing. They go, dude, no offense, but I never heard of you a year ago, and now I see you playing with Ace. You're doing these events. You're playing. I started playing with Doug Aldrich, who at the time was he's in Dead Daisies now, but he was in Whitesnake. Playing with him and Michael Devin. We did a tour with this band called Steamroller. So I was like filling in for like Brian Tichy had done that gig previously. And then like I was filling in with this other artist for something Jason Sutter was doing. And Jason's now been with Cher, but at the time he was with Marilyn Manson. And anyway, so I'm getting all these gigs and I'm doing all this stuff in town. And they're like, I never heard of you. And now you are like doing all this stuff. Like, what's going on? So I would meet with people and talk. And I realized that I could explain what I was doing because none of this stuff came naturally to me. Right. So like if you were to ask Alex Van Halen, like, how can I get some better gigs? I mean, he's an intelligent guy, but he might go, I don't know, man. I started playing with my brother when I was 1. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know how to get gigs, bro. He could tell you how to maybe get a record deal or how to get the band ready to go in the studio. Like he could tell you what he did, but he's not a hired guy.
Yeah.
Right. So for me, I had no freaking clue. And then within like, a few months before I got that first opportunity with the Gary Sharon thing from Extreme, started seeing results. And then I'm like, oh, I could tell you exactly what I did because none of this stuff came easily to me. Nothing came easily and nothing came naturally. Right? It was really uncomfortable. So I was able to articulate it. And then I'm like, wow, I'm pretty good at this. And then I had guys that would, hire me for drum lessons but they would want to talk about the business. And I thought, you know what? Well, why are we in here with blowing our ears out, hitting snare drums? Like, let's just go for coffee.
Yeah.
So I started offering coaching sessions and that just took off. And at first I had some apprehension about charging musicians for how to make it do the thing, get to the next level. But the reality is I only have so much time in my day. And the other part of it is like I can really help people. And I did something in the beginning where I offered like 5 free 30-minute sessions. And the people that took me up on that, like one never showed up, the other one like tried to reschedule. And I'm like, you know what? And if someone's serious, they're gonna pay money for it. And if they're not, that's cool. Like they can just ask anyone. Let them just go ask other people. There's plenty of people out there.
Yeah.
Right. But like I really worked hard at this, and I've done a lot of work on my own to get clarity of how I can better teach people and talk to people and communicate.
Yeah.
So it was born out of my experience and of basically having nothing but my ability to play drums and a dream. Right. And then again, within a few months, boom. And I'll tell you, all those people I worked with, I didn't know any of them before that. So it's not like I had all these relationships and I had to activate them. I knew nobody who was playing with anyone that you'd ever heard of.
Yeah. And essentially, by the sounds of what you answered there, you're almost doing cold calling. If you land up emailing people going, hey, I'm this dude, I'm a drummer, check me out. It's like, the returns on those. I'm sure you seem like quite an intelligible guy. So I applaud you on the knuckle down that must have taken, because, this is music, and you get a lot of no responses, and you also get a lot of rejection, and a lot of people can't handle that, Last thing on the coaching side, do people need to have certain criteria in place, or do you require certain levels for them to be at in order to work with you?
No, I think just the clarity and knowing what they want to do, right? Or just knowing that they want to do something next level, but maybe they need to figure out how to define that. But I have clients that are just out of high school, right? And they want to have a career in music. And so I'm working with, several people who are like 18, 19, 20. Just got off the call with a guy who just graduated from Berkeley, moved to LA, and was like, cool, I have all this ability, but I have no idea how to get work. And I'm like, cool, let's get work.
Yeah.
And he's doing great. Just did a session at Village Recorders in LA. So no, there's no specific level, because everybody's got a different story, right? And next level to me might be different than next level to you. So it's just next level from where they are. And all I'm doing is helping people get clear on what they want to do, put a plan together, and help them realize their vision for themselves. And that requires just walking through your bullshit.
Yeah.
It's, some of it is external. There's external stuff that we do too, but like it's a combination of the two. And so, no, there's no, I'm just here to help people realize their goals.
Awesome. Okay, let's switch back to music. You've obviously mentioned quite a few different artists that you play with. The most obvious one that I'd like to just talk about for a second, at least, is Ace. Tell me how the opportunity came to join or play with the Ace Frehley band, and what advice could you potentially offer listeners on ensuring that they're ready should those kinds of opportunities come about for them?
So I'll start with your second question first. So the biggest difference I noticed, and the frustration I always had with bands that I was in, especially original bands, is people would gauge how much effort they were going to put into something based on the situation. And I just always felt like I'm going to play like this is the biggest gig of my life. So, I never gauged it any other way. It's too much work anyway, calculating. I'll put in 75% effort. I found too for myself, if I didn't give 110%, I didn't feel good about myself afterwards. And I did a record with Jimmy Braylow, who was VP of A&R at Atlantic, and he had just worked with Mick Jagger. And I said, hey, tell me about Mick. And he goes, well, he said, every time Mick sang, he was standing up dancing. Like, we were listening to this track and I was like, Mick, what are you thinking in this verse? And he stood up and did the Mick Jagger dance and like got in my face. There's no like 10% or 50% with Mick. It's full tilt like soccer arena Mick all the time. And I'm like, wow, exactly. Like it's never is half volume. We would do shows and someone would be like, this is a really important gig tonight, guys. We got to really kick ass. I'm like, wait a second. First of all, don't say that to anyone before they're about to go on stage. Second of all, what have you been doing all the other gigs? Those weren't important. So what I realized, if someone wants to be prepared for that opportunity, yeah, every time you play like it's the greatest, biggest, most important moment of your life, because it is. Don't matter. It doesn't, and it's not even because you never know who's in the audience. I don't care who's in the audience. Just you play every moment like it's the most important moment of your life. And oh, by the way, once you do this in your career, try it in your life. Right. That's a whole other conversation.
Powerful
And
stuff, though.
that's a big part of the coaching thing too. But to stay on the music thing, yeah. So that's how you prepare. That you just be that person now.
Yeah.
Who would you be if you were the, I don't know, drummer for the Foo Fighters, or who would you be if you were the guitar player in, the Foo Fighters? I don't know, whatever. All my favorite bands are old, but you know what I mean? Like that's it. So how that Ace gig came about, I became willing to do anything. So that meant I would go to open mics, which most of them sucked, terrible, nobody there, depressing, but it was better than me sitting in my house. So I would go to this one jam, it's about an hour away, and this guy Brent Woods was there, and I met him, and he played with Vince Neil, and I was like, oh yeah, hey, cool, nice to meet you. We exchanged numbers. And then I heard that Ace's drummer had quit. And I went through my phone and I called everyone I had met up to that point, and in those few months where I was really putting myself out there. And Brent was like, yeah, I know the bass player in Ace's band, Anthony. He goes, I'll reach out to him. I was like, okay. And he reached out to him. I talked to Anthony, flew to New York, did the audition without Ace. And I had to sing too. I had to sing Love Gun and something else too. And yeah, that was it. And then I got a call back a couple weeks later, and I got the gig. But the preparation for that was everything I had ever done before that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Right. So it wasn't like, oh, I got to sing Love Gun. Okay, I got to really work on singing really well. It's like, no, I always did that.
Yeah. Talk to me about how important you think versatility is as a musician when it comes to your overall musicianship.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't know how versatile I am. Hopefully versatile enough. I definitely had, I've had people go, how do you go from playing with Ace Frehley to playing with Mr. Big? And I'm like, both rock bands, mostly in 4/4. I mean, to me, it wasn't that different, right? But I think having an understanding and an appreciation for music and beyond just stuff that you play, right? So for me, it was like being a singer, the songwriting thing was of interest to me. So because of that, I got into, Lieber and Stoller and all the Phil Spector stuff and all the Don Kirshner writers. And then ABBA and the Bee Gees and like all these things, these just incredibly well-written songs that just connect with millions of people. And that's my era too. So I'm referencing those bands, but not the 60s. I'm not that old, but, so I had an appreciation. So when I hear something, I can, I probably am going to get an idea of what to play to it. But if I don't, I go, well, this is kind of like a ABBA thing, actually, even though it might be like heavy guitars. Or this is kind of like a so-and-so thing. Or this is and I've learned as a producer to not reference other bands, because sometimes people like it. Like me as a writer, if someone says like, oh my God, that sounds like a Monkees song, I'd be like, oh, great. Love the Monkees. Awesome. Thanks. Or, oh, that sounds like a, Roy Orbison thing. But like, oh, cool. I didn't hear that. Thanks. But a lot of times artists are very sensitive. And if you reference a band that they don't think is cool, you're in trouble. They're like, that's how you see my song? It's like, actually, dude, it's the same progression and the same drum beat. Sorry to tell you.
Same
Yeah,
register, same BPM.
yeah, like if someone goes, dude, gets dudes, it's like, that's the disco beat, bro. I don't know what you're thinking, but that's disco, and that's fine. I got no judgments. So, but yeah, I think like everything you can bring to the table, the more you can, the better. But you've also, as you know, my role as a hired gun, I get paid to not have an opinion, which is awesome. But there was a time when I really wanted to tell you my opinion. Well, you know what? I wouldn't have been a good hired gun, right? So if sometimes I hear musicians say, "Well, I want, you know what, my band needs to do what they won't do my ideas," and I'm like, "Well, what are your ideas? Are they amazing? Because maybe they're not that great, or maybe you're in a band that doesn't appreciate what you're bringing to the table. So go start your own band." You know, but I just kind of offer everything I have. And then, you know, I let the artist decide what they want to do. And they're really the, you know, so that that goes for live, but that also goes for session work too. You know, I just had a session. It's actually my first Christmas album, and I love Christmas music. But it's this woman, Connie Howard, and it was, you know, piano and stand up bass. And I didn't even like, I didn't have a stick in my left hand. I had a stick in my right occasionally, but in the left was brushes. And I just said, like, I can, she just sent me demos. And I go, well, I can do this, or I can do this, or I can do this. And she's like, oh, I really like that. But then can you do that and that? And I go, yep, whatever you need. Like, you tell me, I'll put it all together and spit it back out as a drummer would. That's it. I have no opinions, you know? So to me, that's the versatility, like versatility in your willingness to just do whatever the artist wants. And again, like we're going to do this, and then we're going to do this part twice as long. But then this part here, we're just going to cut that in half and go right to the next thing. And it's like, okay, got it. Let's go. 1, 2, 3, not like this whole bit, you know. So for me, that's, I think, the versatility, like just being flexible is important. And yeah, as far as like having different skills, I mean, obviously I can sing. You know, when I played with Ace for most of the time with him, I sang all the Paul Stanley songs. So like, you know, that's, I can do that. But if you don't want me to sing, hey, you know what? That's great too. I love playing drums and not having to get the microphone close to my mouth and not hit it with my stick, you know?
Yeah, or you know, before people started using the beta, the shorter one, how often you could hit your face with those marks as a drummer, man.
Terrible. I mean, the best solution is a headphone
Yeah,
thing. It looks so terrible.
it
I won't
does.
do it. To
Yeah.
me, it's like drum cages. I mean, no, I'm sorry if you've ever had them. It's just they're ugly. I know. I don't. Well, it's so convenient. No, it's not. It's not. Stop. Again, unless it's a whole thing. Unless like Glenn Sobel has a, you know, this Gibraltar
Yeah.
construct, like that's a thing. It's a visual thing. Like Brian Hitt from REO Speedwagon's got a great. Like that's a whole different world. But just no, man.
Yeah.
Just like do what's actually like the best,
Yeah.
period, and don't shortcut it. So anyway, with the headphone mic, that is the most convenient, but Tommy Lee is the only person, because he's, you know, he's half naked and whatever, he's got his hair and he's got a mohawk and he's got this thing on his head. That's fine. But otherwise, can't do it, man.
I couldn't
Can't
agree
do it.
more, dude. Have you ever seen the cage system that Andy Gangadine plays with?
Mm-mm.
Okay, I'm gonna make a note of this and send you a picture. This thing
Yeah.
is, I've never seen anything like it. He used to play with the Spice Girls. And
Hmm.
and I mean, that was one of the big gigs he's done. He's done many. He played on the Massive Attack records, and he plays, I can't remember who he's playing with now, but he's out there, and his drum kit
Hmm.
is just quite something. Um,
Yeah.
Talk to me about hardships. What has or have been the biggest parts about being a career musician for you personally?
I think, you know, being away from my family and being away from my originally girlfriend and then wife, that's a strain. It's a I think a lot of women think they want to be with a musician, and I'm like, nah, you don't. just hook up with them and then go on with your life, because it's like it's not what you think it is, you know. So that's a not a constant strain, but it's a continual thing, and you just got to figure out how to make it work or not, you know. But that's been a challenge. Um, the nature of this business, it's like the phone like 2 days ago. Yeah. So we're in the holidays right now. I don't know if it's going to come out, but like heading into the second week of December right now. So I'm looking at my calendar. I'm just like looking at my budget, and I'm like, okay, figuring it out. And then phone rings, and it's like, hey, can you do this thing in LA? Or can you shoot this video? And like, we want to get Phil X. And I'm like, okay, go like when? And they're like, next week. I'm like, great. And so I put together a band, making calls, booked the flight, hotel, boom. Now I'm going to be in LA for 4 days, and, you know, make a chunk of money. And like, so it can happen like that, but a lot of people can't deal with it, and there's been times when, yeah, it's been really stressful, you know, um, as far as financially, like the coaching thing, like in my one-on-one program, which is a 6-month program, and people have the option to make one payment or save them some money, or they can pay monthly for 6 months. And so when I have clients like that, there's some sort of consistency, right? Because it's like they're on a payment schedule. But it is what it is. And there's cats. I mean, I have friends that play, like my buddy Jason, like he plays with Cher, but I don't think she's played since COVID. So that's a killer gig. To my knowledge, it hasn't earned him a dollar in, however many years, right? Now, again, he might be unreaching. I don't know his.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
I don't know his business, but just saying, like, because you might go, oh, you got a gig with this band, like that's amazing. Yeah, look at their website. When was the last time they toured?
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So, yeah. So the up and down thing, is challenging. I think that's pretty much it. Um, this is not for everybody. I have a buddy who works with Metallica, and he's not in the crew. He's like got a really pretty sweet gig. But he goes, dude, he goes, I can't tell anybody this. He's like, but it's grueling. He goes, no one would understand. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
he's like, I can't complain, but it's just touring. It's just go, 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 go. And he's like, and we travel as good as you can travel, but it is what it is. So yeah, it's not for everybody. And but I like going places. I like being in new places. I like staying in hotels. I like all that. And I love my home too, and especially having a family. I love my home. But I like coming home. I don't like being home for too long. And even if it means like today, okay, we're going to take a drive, kids, we're going to go do this thing, and then we're going to come home. Like, I don't have to go away from my family, but just, I can't be in the house like all day, every day. It's not,
Yeah.
It doesn't work for me.
Cabin fever. All right. If we have time, I'm going to come back to the touring thing, but I'm going to try and get these important ones knocked out first. You've spoken about, some of the mindset stuff. I don't necessarily want to talk more about getting gigs. I think those stories will vary for people in different personalities across the board. Instead, let's talk about what you think people could do to keep a gig once they've got it. Now, again, obviously that's a bit of a loaded question because it could depend on the person, it could depend on the acts, it could depend on if they're changing bands every tour, etc., etc., etc. But just some little things that you feel might help you as a musician. You've hypothetically got this situation, you find yourself getting the gig, you're doing this crazy cool thing now. What should you do to try and stay in the good graces of that said company or band?
I would say, don't ever take it for granted, like really make sure you're showing up every day with gratitude. And again, that's just in life too, right? But
Yeah.
if you're talking about the gig specifically, because people are gonna have a gig, they go, yeah, I'm doing this thing and I'm playing with this thing and I'm getting paid well and we're doing this thing. But man, this tour manager, he's always like has us do like like I had a tour band I was playing with, and this one tour manager would have us all get to the airport like too early. was like noticeably earlier. And I just was like, man, I wish she, and it's like, dude, shut up. Like, I didn't say anything to anyone anyway in the first place, but like, I was not happy with that.
Yeah.
That was my issue. It's like, come on, bro. Right. So, like, really to not take it for granted, to show up with gratitude. And, but at the same time, it's like, if you have a gig, like, you should be asking for a raise every year or so. Right. And that might lose you the gig. Now, I'm, in my experience, they can just say no. I'm going to fire you. Right. You could get fired. Maybe. Right. I mean, I know guys that have had management shakeups, and then like new management comes in. And they're like, okay, so here's your pay for the next tour. They're like, whoa, what happened? And they're like, oh, if you don't like it, we got like 20, Berkeley grads that are happy to do this gig.
Yeah.
You need to decide what is important to you. Right. And I was just WhatsApping with one of my coaching clients. He's 19. Dude's crushing. He's doing so great. He's going on tours, doing all those cool things. But I talk with him about choices. I go, you want to have choices. If you always have a choice, but like if you've got no gigs and you get offered a gig, I mean, just take it, But like he's got multiple gigs, and he's got this thing, which is like this original thing that's really cool, but doesn't pay a lot of money. He's got this other thing that's like a touring show thing, but he's like going to countries he's never been to before, and like he's 19. And he's out there, he's doing his thing, he's playing small arenas. It's like we have to decide what's important to you. Like, is that, and the steady pay and all that, is that worth it to potentially have to let go of this original band? Or is being in an original band with some guys your age like more important and worth it for you to let go potentially of this thing that takes you around the world? And like you just make a decision, and then once you're clear, then you just move forward. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like you want to have choices, and you're not meant to have every gig forever. So like but you should be asking for a raise every year, and you should be having that conversation. And so how to keep a gig? I mean, just say shut up, don't do anything, and be perfect. But if you're going to be happy, if you're happy doing that.
Yeah.
Again, I don't offer my opinion, right? Like I don't do that unless I'm asked. And even when I'm asked, and done 5 records with Ace Frehley, go, hey, what do you think of this pot? And he plays it, and he goes, or the other one's this. And I go, well, which one do you like? I kind of like this one. Yeah, I think that's great. Yeah, that's what I thought. You're welcome.
Perfect.
There you go. Right. And so to keep a gig, again, I would just say like stay in gratitude and check yourself. Like don't ever take it for granted.
Yeah. Great Ace Frehley impersonation there, by the way.
Yeah, we all have. Them.
I'm going to try and get 2 more in, Matt. Have you got any nightmare gig that you could potentially tell us about real quick?
Nightmare gig. God. No, I don't. I mean, nothing's coming to mind. There have certainly been some Ace gigs, in the past where he would call the second, like the same song twice. So we'd play a song and then he'd call it and go, this one's called, Parasite. And we're like, we already played that. That's not a nightmare though. It's just funny. And then he goes, oh shit. Sorry, I couldn't see the set list. All right, here we go. New York Groove. It's not like a big deal, but it's like, it's a funny thing. But no, I mean, not anything seriously, just terrible. No, sorry. I don't have anything like that.
Okay. Last question for you. What do you think has either been the best piece of advice you've ever received in regards to trying to have a music career? Or if you can't think of something along those lines, what do you think has been, and you might have already answered this, but what do you think has been something you've learnt along the way that could be good advice for someone trying to have a music career?
I would say the second question is just make up your mind. Like if you want to do this for a living, get clear on that and decide that's what you're going to do. And just burn the bridges. Like or don't burn the bridges, but burn the ships, I guess, right? Don't burn the bridges. Build bridges, but don't burn but just burn the ships. I had a kid at a clinic I did in South America, and he asked me, how do I know if I really want to have a career in the music business? I said, if you're asking me, you don't.
Yeah.
So, and he was kind of like, well, no, I mean, I go, no, it's okay. You don't have to want to have a career, but like, if you're asking me, how can you know? You just need to know. So, I would say just make up your mind and get clear on what you want to do. As far as the best advice, Ross, who is the owner of Drum Doctor in LA, which is like if you're going in the studio and you need a certain drum sound, drum set, whatever. And he has a bunch of guys like Keltner and stuff store their stuff at his place too, and he'll just bring the drums there. And I said, how did you get into this line of work? It's such a unique. He goes, I came out to LA to like, be a drummer in a band and all this stuff. And he goes, and people started just calling me to like, hey, can I write your kit? Can I borrow your kit? He goes, so I just like started answering the doors that were getting knocked on, and I'm like, oh my God. And that's when he said that to me, literally in that moment, I was like, yeah, I'm supposed to be playing drums and not singing because I do sing, and the first gig I got was playing with Ace singing lead. So go figure. But he just was like, don't fight it, man. Like if there's an opportunity, just go with it.
Yeah.
And now look at him. He's a drum doctor. So
yeah. Dude, I can't thank you enough for your time, man. I hope that everything moving forward for you goes as well as it seems to be going now. I will publish all of your links in my show notes when this comes out. I'll also drop you a text closer to the time. But from myself and the Musicians Mentor podcast team, Matt Starr, thank you, brother.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Peace.
Yeah.
Sweet. Matt Starr, everybody. I'd like to publicly thank Matt for his time. As usual, I'd like to publicly thank each and every one of you who continue to listen to this podcast for your time. Don't forget to check out our website, musicians-mentor.com. There's lots of useful tips and information on there if you're a musician, or if you're just maybe trying to break the cycle of how you think as a musician. As usual, if you need any help with your career or your artistry, please do drop me a DM or an email. My name is Travis Mark. I will catch you on the next one. Peace.